Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Revive Your Health podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brandon Schreiner. Today, we're going to talk all things hormones. We have a chronic epidemic of hormone issues in our culture. So today, we're going to talk about the 3 common ways that we can have imbalanced hormones, and we're going to give you nutrition. We're going to give you fitness. We're going to talk about how the nervous system has a huge impact on hormone production, and really, how do we get to the root cause of bad hormones. So if you're out there and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, make sure you listen up. If you're a fan of the podcast, make sure you share this with somebody who's close to you, far from health. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Enjoy the podcast. Sweet. So we're talking all thing hormones. We're calling this holy hormones, discovering the power within the body. Hormones, it's a huge topic. We could be talking about this for hours upon hours. We're going to give you the nitty gritty and the basics that you need to know to be dangerous. This is one of those topics where I think the research actually says that 1 in 3 women suffer from hormone issues, and 1 in 3 men actually struggle with hormone issues, specifically testosterone. With women, it's estrogen dominance. We have anything from estrogen dominant cancers to thyroid dysfunction to adrenal fatigue. Men suffering with chronically low testosterone. And it's very interesting because 100 years ago, we didn't have these issues. Like, we didn't have women with estrogen dominant cancers. We didn't have men with chronically low testosterone. What has changed? And we're going to talk about the 3 ways that we can that we suffer with today in our culture that have a huge impact on whether or not those hormones are balanced or not. One of them being stress. We're just constantly involved with stressors. Some we can control, some we can't control, and so we've got to have our armor on, and we've got to have some tools in our tool bag to be able to combat that. And the next thing is xenoestrogens. We're going to talk about how certain products, from cleaning products to our toothpaste to our deodorant, women out there, a woman will walk around every single day with about 475 different chemicals on their face, in their hair, from just makeup that's having a huge impact on the disruption of estrogen. And the next thing is neurology and how that has a huge impact on stress, and how your nervous system plays a huge role in the balancing or the homeostasis of these hormones. We're going to talk about all those today. My family, just a little bit about me, if you're just tuning into the podcast, I've got 4 boys. Beckett's 10, Ezekiel is 8, Hendrix is 6, and Mac is about 16 months. We're a chiropractic family. My wife, Dr. Samantha, is a chiropractor. We met in chiropractic school, and she kind of runs more of the functional medicine side of things, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit when it comes to our metabolics program. But we're a family that lives the principles that we're going to talk about today. I teach my kids every single day that, we can't necessarily control, the events that go on in this world. We can't control, necessarily whether all of our foods are not covered in plastic or sprayed with certain things. We do the best that we possibly can, but we live a life and a principle and certain values in our family that God does not create junk. Your body was born beautifully and wonderfully, and so we have to steward over the temple that God has given us. And I always teach my boys, like, your body's like a car. Your body is a high performance engine created by God to do amazing things, and if you don't change the oil in that car, if you don't get routine oil changes, if you just choose to kind of put diesel fuel in your Lamborghini, then you're going to get you're not going to get very good output. And by doing that, we choose better food choices. We exercise on a regular basis. We take quality supplementation. We practice things like prayer and meditation and things to help minimize stress. My kids have been adjusted and had their nervous systems checked from the day that they were born. My kids get evaluated and checked or adjusted every week by me or my wife or our other doctors in our office. My wife the same. So we're not perfect. We don't expect you to be perfect, but we are living in a world that has so much toxicity, so much stress, so many ways that can disrupt hormones that we have to be armed and we have to be ready to be able to adapt to the inevitable stressors that we have. I love this quote by Jordan Peterson. He says, in order to be able think, you have to risk being offensive. And we live in a world that's pretty much saying, hey, don't think for yourself. Just listen to what this person has to say, whether it be a doctor or some type of an expert. And so I want to empower you as a patient or as somebody who's listening to this, is that to take a step back for a second and ask yourself, does this make sense? If God doesn't create junk and our body was beautifully and wonderfully created, does it make sense to, take a medication or take some type of a drug to cover up something that really is an internal problem? There's a cause to everything. And I would even say that as somebody who's teaching you, I have to, every day, I have to, close my eyes and pray that, hey, somebody's going to be offended by what I'm going to have to say. But sometimes in order for there to be truth to come across, somebody's going to be offended. And, in order to actually get things across to the world that we're living in today, people are going to take offense to it. And so some of the topics that we have today, maybe countercultural, but I've been told, and I truly believe this, that if you're not swimming upstream when it comes to health, if you're not kind of going into the storm when it comes to, living a godly, healthy, drug-free life, then you're probably swimming in the wrong direction. So if you're choosing opposition, if you're doing the hard things, if you're struggling through these things and you're asking the question, is this the root cause as to why it is I have the problem? You're asking the right question, and it's okay to be offensive in those situations. I was just reading this. RFK Jr. is being sued for asking the right question. I saw this the other day, and this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, is that people are getting massive kickback for asking the right question. Is this particular shot, is this particular drug being researched heavily enough to actually be given to our population? I think the big problem with our community is that we don't like to ask questions. We just go with the flow. We go with the herd. We're oftentimes sheep led astray. And so anytime you start asking the right question, people get upset, especially pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies were the only country in the world that has allowed pharmaceutical companies to invade our living rooms every day through television, through this. And so we're constantly bombarded with information. And so I just want you to know that ask the question. Don't just go with the flow. We have to be grounded. We have to understand and do our own research. But I just want you to understand that sometimes asking the right question can come with a lot of attack. And so this is a problem with our culture. And we start asking the question, why? And that's what I want to start out with today when it comes to hormones is, just from a physiological standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, I want you to understand there's two varying different models that we have in our world today. There's a model that says, hey, you were born sick and weak, and your hormones just automatically, as you age, become dysfunctional. And therefore, hey, instead of trying to clean up the environment at which the body lives in, let's just give your body something in order to manipulate physiology to make you feel better or to make your blood panel or your hormone panel look normal, but yet we're not actually trying to find the root cause. And then there's another, camp. You can call it the chiropractic camp. You can call it the natural medicine camp that says, wait a second, if your body's this beautiful organism, this amazing kind of orchestra, we have to make sure that the right signals are being sent to the right thing, and your body is this massive system, individual organs working individually of one another that are being, controlled by one master control center, your brain. And we just can't cut organs out. We can't just, give medication to certain things. Like, we have to take a step back for a second and say, wait a minute, what is the root cause of this? Medicine looks at the kind of the downstream effect. Hey, you've got this, massive stream, and there's a dam with water coming out, and then downstream it's muddy. There's a bunch of trash down there. Medicine will say, well, hey, there's a fish that's being injured at that lower part of that stream. Let's go ahead and inject it with something. Let's give it a medication to manipulate its physiology. Chiropractic kind of steps back for a second and say, hey, let's go to the root source of the problem. Let's make sure that that particular source of water has proper filtration. Let's make sure that the environment at which those fish are living in are in a good environment. I call it the fishbowl analogy, right? You've got two fish bowls. You've got a dirty bowl that's full of toxins and all kinds of. The ecosystem's just not good. You got a fish in there, and then you have a very, very clean fish bowl with another fish. I think we can all take a step back for a second and say, look, which fish is going to be healthy? The fish in the bowl with clean water, with a good clean environment, and then you got a fish in a dirty pool of water. Medicine will say, well, hey, let's go ahead and give that fish something in that dirty water because it's developing a tumor. Its hormones aren't right. It's not breathing right. Let's give it a breathing machine. Let's do this. Let's take a step back for a second and think, what is the only way that we're actually going to create root cause solutions? Rip that fish out of that environment, clean up the environment, put clean water in it, and then we're going to be able to get to the root of the issue. And so before we begin to talk about the hypothalamus and this, what we call this hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or what we call the HPA axis, I want you to understand that we just have to understand those key principles and the difference between medicine and natural medicine, which is it's all about environment. Before you go, getting a testosterone injection or, estrogen cream or progesterone cream or whatever, let's start looking at the environment that we have. Are you making good food choices? Do you have good clean water? Are you exercising on a regular basis? Do you have some type of a stress management technique like prayer or meditation? Are you doing the things necessary on a regular basis to fuel this amazing body that God has already given you? If the first question that you ask is, hey, what can I take versus what can I do to clean this system, we got to ask the right question. As we move into some physiology here, I want to talk about this hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or what they call the HPA axis. Basically, you've got a hypothalamus within your brain that communicates to your pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland then communicates to your adrenal gland, and that helps regulate cortisol. And so basically what this, the hypothalamus is what they call the master control center. Your brain is the master control center of your body, but your hypothalamus happens to be the part of your brain that is the master control center of hormone regulation. It's a master regulator of the endocrine system because it connects to the nervous system. It connects the nervous system to the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus operates through a negative feedback loop to maintain homeostasis. Your body wants to be in balance, and that's kind of what homeostasis is. If you're doing the right things, if you're adapting appropriately, your body is going to naturally want to go back into a normal state of homeostasis. Think of a temperature gauge in your house. When you set that temperature gauge to a certain point, your body, the HVAC system in your house will adapt. It's going to cool the house or it's going to heat the house depending upon where it's at. Your hypothalamus, your brain, is kind of like your temperature gauge, your thermometer in your house, and so it responds effectively to certain parts in your body, right? So if you've got something going on in your body, a stressor, your hypothalamus is going to kick in. It's going to tell your pituitary gland and your adrenal glands to produce cortisol to begin to balance and create homeostasis within the body. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is where as a chiropractor, I get really excited because this is kind of the innate wisdom that God put in your body to say, hey, there's a stressor, there's something that we're doing on a regular basis or being exposed to on a regular basis, and your body is adapting, doing the right thing at the right time, creating an excess in cortisol, a decrease in cortisol, which therefore is causing a thyroid dysfunction, an excess in estrogen. Those are all good things. The body is doing exactly what it needs to do to create homeostasis. Now, if we don't listen to the body, if we ignore those signals in the body and we just start covering that response up with a drug or some type of a medication, it almost kind of gets us to think, well, we're good, but internally we're not good. And now we have this internal chaos, this internal struggle where the body's like, well, they're not fixing the environment. They're not cleaning out the fish tank. They're giving me all these different medications and drugs, and it's kind of manipulating physiology, but then we get backflow. Then we get other things that are happening. And so I want you to understand that your body doesn't create junk when it comes to temperature control, appetite, thirst regulation, sleep-wake cycles, and your stress response. Your body is looking to regulate homeostasis through this HPA axis. There are 5 major players in this particular process through this HPA axis. Number 1 is estrogen. We talk about estrogen dominance. We have a huge estrogen dominance issue in women. today because of what we call xenoestrogens. That can be from cleaning products to makeup to toiletries, the air that we breathe, the food that we take in, and that stress response. Number 2 is testosterone. Testosterone is something that we have to have in the body. In order to be able to create testosterone, we have to have things like cholesterol. So diet plays a huge role in how our bodies are actually naturally producing testosterone in both men and women. And so, men, if you're, living on a low-fat diet and you're chewing cholesterol medications, your testosterone levels are probably going to be pretty low. And so we have to take a step back for a second and say, why is my cholesterol high? What's going on within the body? And we're going to talk about inflammation and things like that. Then there's progesterone, there's cortisol, and there's thyroid. All of these things together are high, low, out of balance because of the stress response and this HPA axis. Couple of things when it comes to estrogen dominance. Like if you're a lady out there and you've heard this term before, what are the symptoms of estrogen dominance? Number 1, irregular cycles. Right, we see this early on, especially as young women, young ladies turn into women, getting a menstrual cycle. We see this quite a bit. Just irregular cycles. It starts very early. I would actually say that girls in the U.S. specifically are hitting puberty at an alarmingly fast rate compared to 100 years ago. And a lot of that is because of these unbalanced hormones and toxins within our system that are creating this estrogen dominance, creating these irregular, painful menstrual cycles. Weight loss resistance. We see this in individuals now today. I'm having a hard time losing weight. I can't regulate my metabolism effectively. And we won't get into a ton of this now, but now we have the GLP-1 blood sugar regulation drugs, right? Where now we're giving these drugs that were meant for diabetes, but now we're giving them for weight loss. I don't know if you just saw this, but the individual or the pharmaceutical company that just developed the weight loss drug that is kind of sweeping across the world, Ozempic, they're being sued for $2.2 billion for all the negative side effects and hospitalizations and cancer and thyroid dysregulation. So there's a lot of negative side effects to these weight loss drugs because if you don't fix the root cause as to why it is the HPA axis and metabolism isn't working correctly, then there's going to be huge side effects. Slow metabolism, uterine fibroids. I mean, I'm seeing this as an epidemic in our clinic, like women as early as 20 years old, like being told they're not going to be able to have children because of uterine fibroids and polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, things like fatigue, things like problems sleeping. If you can't sleep, you can't heal. And so if you can't sleep, we have to figure out why it is our body is not allowing us to go through that natural healing process. Mood swings, anxiety and depression, bloating, headaches, specifically hormonal headaches, and heavy periods or no periods at all. These are all signs of estrogen dominance. And then we kind of shift gears a little bit and we go into the effects of testosterone deficiency. I work with a lot of men around the country, specifically through a company called Warrior 3 Project that we have. Many of you that are listening in our clinic, that men are struggling with low testosterone at an alarmingly fast rate. Research says that as you get older, specifically after the age of about 35, testosterone will naturally begin to decrease 1% to 2% each year, but not like at alarmingly low rates like we're seeing today. Actually, there's some research out there that says the average grip strength of a 25-year-old male today is that of an 80-year-old woman 50 years ago. And so just our overall strength, our lean body mass, our libido, our muscle mass, all that kind of stuff is naturally beginning to decrease, but not because our bodies are naturally supposed to just wither away as we get older, but because of all the toxicity, all the different types of dietary things that we're being told that aren't necessarily true as far as low fat, cholesterol, and things like that. Some side effects that, hey, your testosterone is naturally going down. Balding with reduced body hair. You're seeing a lot of men that they're losing hair on their legs, like they're losing hair on their head. That is a sign that you have a testosterone issue. Increase in moodiness, depression, inability to concentrate, or failing memory. These are things that you're seeing early 20s, 30s. More stress, kids, all these different types of schedules, swinging by Chick-fil-A, fast food, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm going bald. I'm fatigued. I can't focus. These are all signs of testosterone. Increased risk of cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and a stroke. Increased belly fat, especially around the abdomen. We're just carrying excess body fat here. We're actually getting increase in breast tissue, reduced strength and stamina, also reduced sexual interest and function, libido. We just have less sex drive. And an increased risk of osteoporosis, so our bone mineral density is going down. We're getting chronically more unstable and brittle bones and spinal structure. As I said before, these are not things that are just natural, but these are things that are created through poor lifestyle and abnormal physiology. A couple things just, feeding into the low T and the causes. One of the big things is metabolic disorders. So obesity and type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders are a major contributor to low T. And so these are things that just don't happen. Like you're not born with obesity. You're not born with diabetes, specifically type 2 diabetes. And I would even argue type 1 diabetes. There's some type of an autoimmune thing going on in the body that would cause someone to do that. But we're overweight. Our blood sugar is way too high. We don't regulate blood sugar effectively. Blood sugar has a massive impact on affecting testosterone levels. Medications, especially corticosteroids. This is a big one. Take care of a lot of men in the clinic. Hurt shoulders, hurt knees, hurt backs. Men are just more likely to go and get a shot because I don't have time to go to the chiropractor. I don't have time to, work on this stuff. So I'm just going to inject my body with corticosteroids. Has a huge impact on hormone function, specifically testosterone. They actually found that chemotherapy and radiation, a lot of men specifically that are going through prostate cancer, chemotherapy and radiation, all types of cancer, but specifically prostate cancer, has a huge impact on lowering testosterone. And then we go into just lifestyle factors. Number one being alcohol abuse. Excessive alcohol consumption can negatively impact testosterone levels. What is a healthy alcohol consumption? I would just say that if you're having alcohol on a regular basis, like on a daily basis, I know individuals that are having 1 to 2 glasses of bourbon every night before they go to bed because that's the only way they can go to sleep. Not only is that not a good way to go to sleep, but it's not a good way to manage testosterone. And so we've got to pump the brakes, and we've got to have some self-control, and we've got to have some discipline, which discipline plays into obesity, it plays into type 2 diabetes, it plays into cancer, it plays into alcohol consumption. We've got to have some discipline when it comes to that. Having a drink or two on the weekends isn't a big deal, but we've got to make sure that we follow that up with good nutrition, exercise to counterbalance. Because the reality of the situation is that there's no real benefit to alcohol from a health standpoint. Maybe a glass of red wine here or there, but who wants to have just one glass of red wine like that? When it just never really works out that way. Like I don't sit around, with a group of my buddies and be, hey, let's just have one glass of red wine because it's healthy. No, we're in a situation where we're social, we're having a good time, and so we've got to make sure that we're dialing that back. Poor diet and lack of exercise, specifically. We're in this like fat phobia kind of a thing where fat makes me fat. And really when it comes to hormone and eating for hormones, good fat specifically, are important because cholesterol is the precursor for every single hormone that's produced in the body. So if we're not eating good, healthy, quality fats, we're eating lots of high complex carbohydrates and sugar, then we're going to increase inflammation throughout our body. And then what happens is that your liver actually produces 70% of the cholesterol in your body. And why does it produce cholesterol? It produces cholesterol because when your liver senses inflammation or injury throughout the tissues of the body, it will actually secrete cholesterol to go to that particular part of your body to heal it. It's a natural response. 30% of the cholesterol in your body is produced by diet. So cholesterol is not a problem, but it goes up when your body is going through chronic inflammation, which is bad meats, bad oils, no sleep, lots of alcohol, stress, and a low-fat diet and a high-sugar diet. And then the doctor will say, well, let's put you on cholesterol medications, which won't actually fix the inflammatory process within your body, and it's this nasty, nasty cycle. High levels of chronic stress impact testosterone, sleep apnea. Individuals with sleep apnea, most individuals that struggle with sleep apnea are overweight, and they're overweight because they can't sleep. Their cortisol is all over the place, and their testosterone levels have plummeted. And so injecting those individuals with TRT injections is not going to fix the root cause or the lifestyle factors. And this is where I kind of go back to the fishbowl analogy, men. If you're struggling with testosterone, before you go get the TRT injection, let's make sure that your fishbowl is clean, that you're doing all the things naturally to make sure that your body is adapting effectively. The other thing here that's really interesting is vitamin D deficiency is one of the big things for men when it comes to low T. We've got a phobia of the sun. We've got two things that have phobias. Number one is sunlight, because the sun's going to give us cancer, which is not true. And then number two is sleep. Like we just and fat. Like we just I'll sleep when I'm dead. Fat makes me fat. My doctor said that stop eating good healthy fats, and then also vitamin D deficiency. So we got to get out in the sun. We got to take our shirts off. We got to get good vitamin D. And we've got to stop lathering ourselves with toxic sunscreen, which blocks those rays. Because here's what's really interesting, is that when the vitamin D from the sun hits your skin, it actually combines with cholesterol to convert to vitamin D3, which is what your body uses to have healthy hormone levels within the body. Hormone replacement therapy. So if you're a woman out there and you're struggling with estrogen issues, you're struggling with estrogen dominance, things like weight control, irregular cycles, sleep, and this is the big thing, right? If I'm a male, I'll go to the doctor. I'm not focusing. My sex drive's down. I can't lose any weight. I'm getting a little bit soft around the midsection. Excuse me. Doctors will say, well, let's go ahead and try some TRT. If you're a lady and you're going in and your hormones are all over the place, hot flashes, my irregular cycles, I can't lose weight, hormone replacement therapy is the answer in a lot of cases. But this is very interesting. This is John Abramson from Harvard, medical doctor. He said hormone replacement therapy not only doesn't decrease the risk of heart disease, strokes, or Alzheimer's, it increases these risks. Let me reread that again. Hormone replacement therapy not only doesn't decrease the risk of heart disease, strokes, or Alzheimer's, it actually increases those risks. So what he's saying here is that if we don't actually work to naturally begin to balance hormones and begin to figure out that natural stress response, that HPA axis, and begin to find the root cause of why we have hormone imbalance, you're actually going to create other problems within the body. You're going to create things like heart disease and strokes. You're going to create the inflammation's still there. The root cause is still there. I'm just replacing those with a synthetic estrogen that creates havoc throughout the body. This is in the Journal of American Medical Association, which is kind of the Mac Daddy of all research articles in the medical world. This is in 2000. A woman's risk of breast cancer increases 8% with each year of hormone replacement therapy. I mean, that's crazy to me, because a lot of women go on hormone replacement therapy because their estrogen is all over the place to prevent cancer. But the Journal of American Medical Association is actually saying that a woman's risk of breast cancer goes up 8% each year they're actually on it. And I think the reason why that is because it goes back to the principle of all the individuals that would even be a candidate for hormone replacement therapy or TRT therapy, they've got a really, really dirty fishbowl. They're not healthy. They're not making the right choices. And I think that's just something that we have to come to grips with. Like, we got here in one way, shape, or another. It's our fault. Most of it's a lack of discipline. The things that I struggle with in my life, I can only point the finger back to me. I get to choose whether or not I choose the apple or the donut. I get to choose whether or not I wake up in the morning or I sleep in. I get to choose whether or not I take the crappy supplements or the good ones. I get to choose whether or not I take care of my nervous system or just put it off for another day. And so we get to choose whether or not we get to clean out our environment or that fishbowl. So before you start thinking about hormone replacement therapy or taking some type of an injection or a cream or some type of a pill, we have to think about the environment at which our bodies are living. I don't care if you have stage 4 cancer. I don't care if you've got the lowest testosterone in the world. You're never going to be out anything by changing lifestyle, by making better food choices, by getting up and going to the gym, by being more disciplined. You're always going to be better off by doing those things. 3 causes of hormone imbalance that we're going to tackle today. Now that we've got a really good idea of, hey, the HPA axis, how it communicates, your nervous system communicates directly to your endocrine system, and that stress response is vital. Estrogen dominance, testosterone, what are the causes of those things? And so we're going to be going through those in extreme detail. Now, number one of massive hormone imbalance is the standard American diet, right? We see that. I think every American knows that, the food that we're eating today is not the food that we had 100, 200 years ago, from the sprays, the glyphosates. Everything's wrapped in plastic. We heat our food in a microwave with plastic. I mean, the drinks, the caffeine, everything. That we are in a fast-paced, give me something quick kind of world, and that comes with a serious price. Because if you don't slow down and you don't start thinking about, quality food on a regular basis, you're going to have massive hormone issues, and that HPA axis is going to be in massive disarray. So standard American diet. Number 2, something we call xenoestrogens, which are these massive estrogen disruptors, plastics, makeup, which we'll kind of talk about. And then number 3 is stress, whether that be stress from emotional stress, spiritual stress, just stress in general. I mean, if you can figure out how to get stress out of the typical American, you're going to be the richest man or woman in the world. The reality is that you're never going to find a pill or a shot or anything that's going to remove stress from your life. I tell patients all the time, stress, neurological dysregulation, subluxation is never going to go away. My job as a chiropractor, my job as a health coach is to get you to make good choices, to become disciplined, to be your coach, to help you adapt to those stressors better. I use this kind of a bucket analogy. Your body is a bucket, and your bucket fills up. Everybody's bucket fills up at a different rate. If you're not doing things to empty that bucket, then your bucket's going to begin to overflow. And when that bucket begins to overflow, that's when we start to see things like cancer. That's when we start to see things like depression, estrogen dominance, testosterone go down. And so a healthy American is going to do everything they possibly can to be pulling those things out of that bucket. What's really interesting is that the medical system was never designed to empty your bucket. What it does is that when your bucket's beginning to fill up with all of these symptoms and all these toxins, they actually give you things to put in your bucket, not to take stuff out, but to make it look like your bucket isn't overflowing. Like they don't have the tools to pull stuff out. They actually put more toxins in the bucket to manipulate the body to act like it's not overflowing. And so whether it be diet, whether it be xenoestrogens and plastics and stress, that is our responsibility. We have to make those choices, because I tell patients all the time, our goal is to try to keep every human being that walks into our clinic as far away from a medical hospital as possible, not because medicine is bad, but because medicine is only good when it's an emergency situation. We should never go to the hospital or a doctor because we want to be healthier. They're not health doctors. They're emergency doctors. We don't go to an endocrinologist to get our thyroid fixed. We go to an endocrinologist to get put on Synthroid to manage our thyroid. We don't ever go to a pulmonologist to get our kids breathing correctly. We go to a pulmonologist to get on a steroid inhaler to not fix the root cause as to why the kid can't breathe. These are end-stage games. We have to find the root cause, do everything that we possibly can, and God forbid we do have an emergency, that's where we can use emergency medicine. When it comes to the hormone diet, there are 4 things that we're going to talk about today. Number 1 is just avoidance. Like, what are some things that we just must avoid? You know, I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and I'm super thankful that, you know, Robert Kennedy is taking, you know, dyes out of Fruit Loops and Corn Flakes and things like that. I mean, I think it's cool, but the reality is that whether or not there are dyes in Fruit Loops or Fruity Pebbles or whatever, like, those aren't foods that we should be eating anyway. Like, you know, like I'll be honest with you, like RFK, I hope you're listening to this. Maybe one of these days you can have me on my podcast, but I don't really care whether or not there are dyes taken out of Fruit Loops. Like, we shouldn't be eating those things anyway. When you look at the grocery store, you know, we should spend minimal amount of time, if any, in the middle of it. We should be shopping on the outside of the grocery store. The meat, the vegetables, the fruits, the oils, the eggs, things like that. And so there are just certain things that we just have to avoid that have no nutrient value whatsoever. And then number 2, we have to replenish. Most of us that are listening to this, we have had a diet that's been so poor that we have to do some things to replenish and become sufficient, because we become so deficient in certain vitamins and nutrients and things like that. And then number 3, we have to supplement. Like, we're living in a world where you cannot expect to live off the land and eat good food and grow your own food and necessarily have the soil quality and everything that we need to become sufficient in the vital vitamins and nutrients that we need. And so we live in a world where we must supplement. So what are those supplements? What do we need to do to kind of cover our basis to be healthy? And number 4, we have to maintain that. There is no 6-month diet. There is no year health plan. It's a lifetime health plan. It's something that I tell my kids on a regular basis when they say, "Hey, Dad, you know, when are we going to stop eating like this?" Well, I mean, you're going to eat this way until you're 18, and then when you're 18, you can go make your own decisions. But in our house, when your mother makes something that's got a protein, a fruit, a vegetable, or whatever in it, and water, and these supplements that we have, these are what you need to become healthy. And so we have to maintain this. Like, this is something that we do every day for the rest of our lives. We get up, we exercise, we think good thoughts, we detox appropriately, we take good supplements, we help our nervous system function well, and we just make good choices. And here's the deal: not every day is going to be a good day. Like, but if I have better days than I do bad days, then you're never going to be the person who's going to wake up with a huge bomb that's going to go off health-wise. The individuals that wake up with massive bombs are the ones that go on a 28-day diet and then a 6-year time lapse off and then a 28-day diet. The individuals that go 6 years of like just 80%, I'm doing a lot of the things very well, I'm maintaining, I'm healthy, and then I just lose it for a couple weeks, I'm not really worried about you. But we have to be disciplined and we have to be structured. When it comes to the hormone diet, what are the things that we want to avoid? Number 1 is that we want to avoid things like artificial sweeteners, things like sucralose, things like aspartame, saccharin. These things have a huge issue with gut imbalance. You know, your gut dysbiosis and your gut in general has a huge player with the neuroendocrine dysfunction. Your stress response comes in. Your brain is sending information to the gut. If your gut has massive amounts of dysbiosis and different things like that, which is AKA leaky gut, like you don't have a healthy gut lining, you can't absorb nutrients. Therefore, it's passing right through your gut lining. It's crossing the blood-brain barrier, and it's going right to your brain, and it's creating systemic inflammation. These are big players. And so things like artificial sweeteners from pops and gum, and I would even say that 95% of your protein powders, your supplement companies that you have out there, very, very few of those supplement companies, when you look at, here's all you got to do. Go to a supplement company that you're being told by an influencer is great, and just look at some of the supplements on the back of it. Number 1, if it's not grass-fed, that is a huge deal. Number 2, if you see things like sucralose, if you see things like aspartame potassium, if you see things like saccharin, different types of artificial sweeteners, you should stay as far away from those companies as possible, because you're going to be consuming those things on a regular basis. Like, you're going to be taking those protein powders on a regular basis. You're going to be taking those energy things, pre-workout, on a regular basis. Those things add up. Taking those things every once in a while is not going to kill you. But the FDA has never done a study on an individual that's taken a toxic protein powder for 10 years straight. It's never been done. And so maybe for 2 months, but we have to make sure that we look at the long-term effect of some of these artificial sweeteners. I mean, look at I walked into a gymnasium, a lunchroom, a cafeteria the other day, at a huge corporate organization. And what I found was that Monster Energy drink. Monster Energy drink was one of those things where it was in actually the vending machine. It was like in the vending machine. It's there, like Swiss cake rolls and fudge rounds and all these different types of energy drinks are at our fingertips. I mean, my God, it's in our churches, for goodness sake. Like, we're talking about stewarding over the temple that God has given us, and in churches and Christian schools and schools all around the world, we are giving our kids the opportunity to have these things. So if you can stay away from artificial sweeteners, then we move into high sugar foods, things like frozen dinners, granola bars, cereals, hot dogs, desserts, high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltose, trans fats, hydrogenated oil. These things are just processed. Not only are they going to create massive amounts of inflammation, but they're also going to create improper beneficial gut bacteria. So sugar is a huge player in the stress response. You might think, well, the stress response is a tiger's loose in my room. Yes, that is a stress response. You're going to go into fight or flight. But constantly putting sugar in your body is also going to create that stress response, which is going to affect that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Low-fat diet is actually a huge problem and something to avoid when it comes to hormone function. Now, I'm not saying that you should live off of, whale blubber for the rest of your life. I'm not saying that you should eat lard every day. All I'm saying is that we have a fat phobia. The moment that we went low-fat, high-carb, we actually got fatter. Our hormones, our cancers went up. Our lean muscle tissue went down. I think it was in 1984, Time Magazine came out with an article that said, eat more butter, because they had said basically that, fat making you fat, it was a huge mistake. And so we're still kind of not adopting that. Even patients in my office will go to their primary care, their blood pressure's up, their cholesterol's up, and their doctor will say, well, hey, go be a vegan. Just stop eating meat, stop eating fat, go eat vegetables. I'm not going to tell you that for 28 days you eat vegetables, you're not going to feel better. But that's not something that we should be doing on a regular basis, especially for hormone function. I've got men in the office that are so scared of fat because they're going to die of a heart attack that their cholesterol levels are that of a 10-year-old female. And so we've got to make sure that we're eating quality fats, things like low-fat diets like hydrogenated oils, things like vegetable oil, and just any kind of low-fat diet leads to high-carb, high-sugar, high-processed stuff. Conventional meats is a big one as well. So, I don't want you just to go out and eat any kind of meat as a carnivore, and not that I'm promoting carnivore, but any kind quality is where we want to go. You are what you eat eats, and so staying away from cows that are being fed grains and a ton of processed stuff, and chickens that are living in a cage and just being fed grain pellets, and farm-raised fish that are being fed grain pellets. So we want wild-caught fish. We want pasture-raised eggs. We want grass-fed beef. We want wild game meat, right? Not only are the omega-3 fatty acid ratios way better, but because of that, the omega-6 ratios are lower, and therefore you're not going to get inflammation. So I can take a 6-ounce steak from a grain-fed beef, and then I can take a 6-ounce steak from a wild deer or a grass-fed beef, and they're two very, very different things. Same thing, maybe same macronutrients, but what they do inside the body from a hormonal standpoint, from a toxicity standpoint, from a filling your bucket standpoint, is way bigger, and where I think it kind of really nips people in the butt. Hey, I'm eating lots of meats, I'm eating fruits and vegetables, my cholesterol's still high, my hormones are still all over the place. That's because what your meat or what those hormones or what the nutrients that were fed to those animals are doing inside your body are wrecking your hormones. I talked a bit about this with alcohol, making sure that we limit alcohol because alcohol is a main, in men it decreases testosterone. It creates massive amounts of inflammation. I mean, you know this. You have maybe a little bit too much to drink and your joints hurt, especially beer, gluten. It affects the gut. It creates a systemic inflammatory response. We should just limit it if we can. The next thing that I want to talk about here is just replenishing. So we talked about avoiding. Now we want to move into replenishing. And the big thing that we want to replenish is more omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are found in fish specifically. Omega-3 fatty acids can actually increase the composition and diversity of healthy gut bacteria. Omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9 fatty acid ratios, we got to have a balance between those. The typical American has a 21-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio, which is why our blood pressure, our cholesterol, our testosterone, that inflammatory response within the body, that stress response that's received by the hypothalamus, that goes to the pituitary, that signals the adrenal gland to increase cortisol. Like, these are all big players. So we have to make sure that we're eating quality foods and even supplementing with effective and quality wild-caught omega-3 fatty acids. Number two, with replenish, we got to have good probiotics. Not only should we be supplementing with good, healthy probiotics. Probiotics are healthy live bacteria that help seed and allow for healthy bacteria in the gut. We want to have a balance of good and bad bacteria in the gut, so that way when we have these foreign particles or big protein molecules like gluten or dairy, or we get exposed to a virus or a bacteria or a heavy metal, it can hit our gut lining, it can disperse, and it can be taken care of effectively, versus I don't have a good bacterial lining because I'm not good at eating good probiotics. I'm eating a lot of meats that have a lot of hormones and things like that. It destroys that gut lining, actually increases those gap junctions. Those big protein molecules go right through, enter the bloodstream, cross the blood-brain barrier, and this is where we start to get things like systemic inflammation. My body is just constantly inflamed. Systemic inflammation leads to autoimmune conditions, therefore cancer, therefore heart disease, therefore cholesterol, achy joints, the cartilage within my knees and my shoulders and my hips, Alzheimer's, dementia, and so forth. So probiotics are very important. Things like kimchi, things like sauerkraut, organic plain A2 yogurt, are very, very good to have if you don't have a dairy allergy, that are important to populate the gut. Prebiotics, things that can help probiotics grow and multiply. Prebiotics are actually a type of fiber that can be found and consumed in fruits and vegetables. So one of the things that I always say is that before you're going to eat that big, juicy grass-fed steak, having a little bit of prebiotics by eating like fresh fiber, like a salad before, those prebiotics help break down that big steak. Now, that's assuming that you've got a good, healthy gut. Some people can get away with eating that. I find, though, that some individuals don't do well on the carnivore diet, not because eating meat is bad, but because they don't have the good gut bacteria to break down that massive protein molecule, and they get things like skin rashes, they get bloating, they get constipated. So we have to make sure that we have a good, healthy gut bacteria. Number three, when it comes to replenish, are just eating raw foods, enzymes that aid in digestion. When heated, these enzymes are deactivated. That's why it's important to make sure that you don't overcook your meat. Like it's a sin to take a grass-fed steak and to eat it like charred. If there's a little bit of pink, if there's a little bit of blood coming out, that's the best way to eat a steak, because you're not going to break down everything. Heating your vegetables, putting in a microwave to nuke them to death, trying to make sure that you're eating raw fruits and vegetables and not overcooking meats, and things like your protein powders and things like that. You got to make sure that they're not heated to high temperatures, because you're spending $50 on a protein powder that some guy with massive muscles promotes, but it was heated so heavily in a lab, and it was isolated down that you're stripping all the natural nutrients out of it. So that was replenish. Now we're going to move into Just some hormone building blocks. I want to talk about fat specifically because I think, like I said, we're in this like massive fat phobia. But fats are the building blocks for hormones. Fats, particularly cholesterol, are essential precursors for steroid hormones. Without sufficient fat intake, the body may struggle produce these hormones, leading to imbalances, specifically testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and things like that. So I want you to understand, when you look at, and you can Google this if you don't believe me, but you just look at the hormone pathway, a hormone building pathway. The beginning of that pathway, you're going to see cholesterol. Every single hormone that's produced in your body has to come from cholesterol. So if you don't have healthy cholesterol levels in your body, and you have dangerously low cholesterol because of cholesterol lowering drugs and things like that, or not eating good healthy amounts of fat from a quality source, then you're going to have hormone imbalance. Specific hormones, estrogen, progesterone, healthy fats, especially omega-3 fatty acids, support the production and the regulation of estrogen and progesterone. So ladies, listen, I'm not saying go and live off of coconut oil, but taking out quality fats from your diet because you think you're going to get fat. A good example, right? Whenever you're, for lunch, you're having a healthy salad, drizzle some organic olive oil on there, some sea salt, some peppers, some healthy nuts, some avocado, and some grass-fed steak. You're going to get lots of good fat, but taking out nuts and taking out avocado and putting low-fat ranch dressing on your salad is not doing you any good. It's actually doing you more harm. So quality fats, very important. Testosterone, dietary fats, specifically omega-3 fatty acids, and also monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats are essential for testosterone production in both men and women. Thyroid hormones, healthy fats are vital for thyroid production and regulation, which affects metabolism and energy levels. So, like I said, I'm not on eating a ton of fat. I think a lot of women have a lot of metabolic issues. So to say that you should be eating 40 to 50% of your diet fat, I'm not saying that. There are a lot of women out there that need to have a lower fat, but the quality of fat that you're putting in your body is essential for the thyroid, for estrogen and progesterone to work effectively. What is like the absolute diet or nutritional guidance that I would recommend for individuals? We call this the Revive Advanced Plan. And the advanced plan is kind of a combination of two things. It's quality. I've been doing, nutrition and fitness for 25 years. And in that 25-year period, I've seen a lot of diets come and go. Back in the day, it was the DASH diet, and so if you had heart disease, even today, if you go to the McConnell Heart Center, they're going to put you on the DASH diet, which is basically don't eat salt, which salt's not necessarily a demon, but it's outdated. And then you went to the Mediterranean diet, then we went to paleo, and then we went to the Whole30, and then we went to vegan, which is basically all that stuff is wrong. So heart disease is going up, so just eat vegetables. And then we went to carnivore, which was like, hey, by the way, we're going to eat meat all day long, eat raw honey and dairy, never eat a fruit and vegetable ever again. And so, to be honest with you, seeing thousands and thousands of patients over the last 15 years, it's created a ton of confusion. And one of the worst places that you can go is Dr. Google, because Dr. Google will give you basically, a plethora of things, and you begin spinning your wheels trying to figure out what works best for you. Let me just say this. There is no one diet that fits anybody, but if there was one thing that I would tell you is that quality will never outdate itself. Quantity for a lot of people is important, and I think that we shouldn't ignore that. I'm not a big macronutrient guy. I don't believe that we were designed by God to wake up in the morning and to weigh our meat and to measure our food and to say, hey, we should be doing 40% of this and 30% of this and hop on a scale and take a body fat thing. And to be honest with you, I think it's a little overkill. We were designed to eat when we're hungry. We're designed to eat when the sun comes up and go to bed when the sun goes down. We were meant to drink water. We were meant to sleep. I think we've got a lot of metabolic insufficiencies and things that we're doing that are causing our metabolism to go into chaos. But from an overall just global standpoint, these are the things that I think that we should be focusing on when it comes to a healthy diet, specifically when it relates to hormones. Number one are healthy fats, right? So things like coconut oil, things like avocado oil, things like organic olive oil, nuts and seeds, raw and organic if you can, avocados, and just good health things like omega-3 fatty acids from wild-caught salmon. Those are just really good things to consume. Maybe not every meal, but one meal or 2 meals a day, or if you're going to use a cooking oil, my God, stop using, canola oil or something like that, because what it does is it's a low melting temp oil, and when you heat it, it turns rancid, and that rancidness turns into free radicals within your body. Those free radicals are actually linked back to cancer. So the reason why we want to cook with things like avocado oil or coconut oil is because they have a higher melting temp, and they're just extremely good. They don't break down inside the body. Number two is if you're going to do dairy. Number one, I put an asterisk next to this because some people just don't have the gut microbiome to break down dairy. I know that dairy is a biblical thing, and a lot of people are saying, well, if you want to diet based off of the Bible, then it's meat and it's dairy, and I totally get that. I think that we should be able to consume A2 grass-fed dairy from yogurt and milk and raw milk. But the problem is that a lot of individuals, they actually say that 70% of individuals lack the lactase enzyme to break down lactose when they're born. And so specifically from the health of the mother, things like that, a lot of kids, notice this, mom and dad, kids are going back to school 2 or 3 weeks from now, they're going to come back, they're going to have runny noses, and they're going to have snotty boogers coming out of their nose. And that's because they spent less time in the sun, and they're under fluorescent lights, and the snack that they got at school was strawberry milk and French toast sticks. So they got a massive amount of dairy, and not from a good dairy source, and they got amounts of sugar and complex carbohydrates, which is going to stimulate that immune response because their gut's having a hard time breaking it down. A lot of kids, a lot of individuals have a hard time with dairy, and so if you don't have a dairy sensitivity, make sure it's good quality, make sure it's A2, make sure it's grass-fed, raw if you can get it. But one thing that I will tell you to do is if you think that you have a dairy sensitivity, take it out for 2 weeks and then add it back in. And if your body just doesn't feel right, then you probably have a gut microbiome issue, and then you need to kind of contact us. My wife can help walk you through our metabolics program. We can heal your gut up so that way you can actually consume something that God designed us to consume. Number 3 is naturally raised animal protein. So grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised eggs. This is where you're going to spend some of your money. You're going to spend some of your money on your oils, your eggs, things like that, and your meats. You cannot sacrifice quality when it comes to this. When someone says, I don't take antibiotics. Haven't taken an antibiotic in years. I'm like, well, hey, what kind of meat do you consume? Well, the grass-fed beef stuff is just way too expensive, so, we get the $3 stuff. And I'm like, well, you're consuming a crap ton of antibiotics because those particular animals are injected with antibiotics to grow quickly. Chickens especially, they massive amounts of antibiotics, and they get huge quickly. A great documentary to watch is called Food Inc. I think that's a great thing to show your children, hey, here's kind of why we eat the way we eat. Sometimes it's always good for somebody else to pour into your kids besides you, because then they kind of get a better appreciation for how smart mom and dad are. Number 4, gluten-free or sprouted grains. Listen, I have a love-hate relationship with gluten-free. I think you can eat really crappy stuff and it can be gluten-free. I think Doritos actually label themselves as gluten-free. So here's the point. If you have a gluten intolerance, number 2, and you don't know you have a gluten intolerance, take gluten out of your diet for 2 weeks, add it back in, and if your joints blow up and your gut and you become really irritable, then you probably have a gluten intolerance, which means you have a gut problem. So that doesn't mean that you can just eat crappy gluten-free stuff that's full of fillers and bad oils. Fix your gut and then go to eating good quality sprouted The big thing is sourdough now, which is super great. Sprouted grains, super awesome. Ezekiel bread, but there are, minimal amounts of gluten in there. So main thing is here with gluten and dairy, a lot of people have sensitivities to them. The main reason why you have a sensitivity is not because you were born with a sensitivity, but because you have a gut microbiome issue that needs to be fixed. Your gut needs to be healed so you can break down those macronutrients, you can absorb them, and your body can not have that systemic inflammatory response. Variety of fruits and vegetables, right? So variety of fruits and vegetables, and I would say, different colors. Like, don't eat the same thing all the time. My wife actually developed an allergy to bananas in chiropractic school because every day she had bananas with like a cashew on top, and she would just eat those. And after, a year of, eating bananas just as a snack, it's like, man, I started to kind of get itchy and things like that. So we had to kind of cycle back through another fruit and vegetable. Your body is basically telling you, hey, I'm getting really used to this, and I'm going to develop an allergy to it. And so make sure that you kind of vary that up. I would also say maybe sticking to organic if possible. It's called the Clean 15 or the Dirty Dozen. The Clean 15 doesn't technically have to be bought organic, especially if you're trying to save some money. The Dirty Dozen, please buy organic because they're heavily sprayed and they don't have they don't have a covering or a skin on them. Strawberries are a great example. One of the most chemically ridden, pesticide sprayed fruit on the planet. If you're not buying an organic, and you go to Costco and you see that that softball size strawberry, and your kids are digging into them before you get home and they're eating them, they're basically getting a massive glyphosate chemical crap storm. So make sure that you're eating organic when it comes to the Dirty Dozen, or washing them thoroughly before eating them. And the next thing I would say is raw honey. I'm kind of going back on, I would say probably 10 years ago, I was pretty big on like this stevia, monk fruit. But I'm finding actually that, consuming those alcohol, even though they're from a plant, they're still broken down in a lab, and they're just not in their purest form. People are developing some gut problems for them. So I'm really big on raw honey. Like every single morning, I'll put some collagen and some raw honey in my coffee, and that is my sweetener. If I want sweetener in all my yogurt, or like a grass-fed yogurt with some frozen strawberries with a little bit of raw honey on there, amazing snack. It's the purest form. Yes, is it going to spike your blood sugar a little bit? But the benefits of raw honey way outweigh any kind of artificial sweetener. And so healthy fats, A2 dairy, if you can ingest it, naturally raised animal products, gluten-free or sprouted grains if you have an allergic reaction, a variety of fruits and vegetables, and raw honey. I would also tell you that intermittent fasting is a great thing for men. If you're struggling with testosterone and hormone levels, intermittent fasting is probably one of the best ways to naturally boost testosterone. Fasting is huge. I can't say that always works with women. Actually, the opposite will apply. I find that women that intermittent fast and eat less, they actually store and have a lot of hormone issues. So if you're that person who's like, hey, I've been intermittent fasting and I'm kind of doing what my husband's doing. He's all jacked and losing weight, but I'm gaining weight and I'm mad all the time. You probably have a deeper problem going on there, and we can work through that with our metabolics. Some essentials when it comes to supplementation. So we're doing all the right things, right? We have a good, healthy mindset. Like, we're disciplined. We're doing the things on a regular basis that are emptying that fishbowl of toxic environment and cleaning the water. We're eating a good, healthy diet based for hormones, good, healthy fats, fruits and vegetables, good, clean animal meats, raw honey, staying away from toxic sweeteners and sugars. What are the things that we need to be supplementing with on a regular basis? We have what we call a daily essentials pack for men and women, and they have things that are broken down into this pack. I find that for me specifically, taking individual supplements are just it's tedious. It can become expensive. So, we have a great system in our office where it's just a packet. You rip it open, take it in the morning after breakfast, and it's got things like an organic multivitamin, an organic men's and an organic women's multivitamin. Women, things for like breast health, organic men's, things for like prostate health, vitamin C, which is a huge player when it comes to hormone production and immune function. We find that individuals that have hormone dysfunction have lower amounts of vitamin C. So taking an organic multivitamin is a great way to just kind of like make sure we fill the gaps. A lot of people say, well, I eat a really good, healthy diet, and every time I take a multivitamin, I feel like I'm a Ninja Turtle and I'm peeing, neon green. Well, that's probably because you have some excess of things. I kind of fall in the I'd rather have an excess of something than a deficiency in something. Like I would rather have all of my bases covered and pee out a little bit of neon green because I'm getting too much of something versus I'm not getting enough of something. You're not going to overdose on a healthy organic multivitamin. Like you're not going to overdose on vitamin C. You're not going to overdose on those kind of things. And so I think that there's like a little bit of scarcity with that. Very rarely does that happen, but the multivitamin is super powerful. That a vitamin D3 plus probiotic complex. So vitamin D3, super important for hormone levels, and then probiotics to make sure that we've got that good bacteria so we can absorb those good nutrients. We can decrease that inflammatory pathway and therefore improve that HPA axis. B complex is really, really important for energy production. You've got a citric acid cycle in your body that produces what we call ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So if your body has proper energy levels and proper, B complex is a huge player in that energy production cycle, then you're going to have proper energy, mitochondrial function, and your body can have that engine can be running effectively. And therefore, our hormones are balanced appropriately. So B complex is super important. Omega-3 complex, we have omega-3 fatty acid in that packet, just making sure that we're getting a proper ratio, a 3-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids, and it has to be from a wild-caught source. Your supplements are kind of like your food. If they're crappy and they're processed, then you have very expensive pee. If they're from a good quality, natural, minimally processed, whole food source, your body can recognize them, they can break them down, and they can use them as fuel. Magnesium glycinate is another huge one, especially when it comes to hormone, neurology, neuroendocrine function. Magnesium glycinate is super powerful, and we find that that is a huge player when it comes to hormone production, things like headaches, and just overall stress response. So your body is sensing a stress response. Magnesium glycinate helps your body begin to adapt better to that. Now let's just say that you're doing all the right things. So we're eating good. We're going to get into exercise here in a second. We got a good mindset. We understand that we have to make sure that we've got a good, clean environment. We're taking good, proper supplements. But yet we're just not there yet. Like we're really struggling to find hormone balance. Our levels of testosterone are just plummeting. We've got massive amounts of estrogen dominance. Our gut is destroyed. We've got autoimmune. We're developing things like metabolic dysfunction, even cancer. It's time to call in the big guns because diet, a lot of times, and I know people get really frustrated with this, that some people are in such bad of a shape and their body has been so deficient for so long that your body, it just needs a little bit of help, and needs help removing things from that bucket. And so this is what we call our metabolics program. My wife is one of the best in the country at this. Sees people all around the country virtually for this program. So if you're out there and you're not necessarily in the Columbus, Ohio area and you're listening to this, you can contact us, and I'll give you this information here in a little bit, and we can set up a phone consult, and she can actually manage your case via Zoom. All the blood testing and everything that we can send to you, all the supplements we have to manage your case, and lifestyle consultations, we can do all that. Basically, this program is a nutrient analysis, toxicity testing, and genetic susceptibility. For instance, nutrients, like if you're not necessarily absorbing nutrients because of gut issues, if you don't have proper vitamins and minerals that you're absorbing and your body isn't producing enough of them. Toxicity, if you've got liver toxicity, if you've got adrenal fatigue, if you're not producing certain neurotransmitters like GABA, which are a huge thing when it comes to sleep and like circadian sleep rhythm. And if you're not sleeping properly, then you're going to have metabolic dysfunction and therefore hormone imbalance. And then even genetic susceptibility, things like your body is not detoxing properly, meaning that you have a methylation problem. And some people actually have a genetic methylation problem that we can actually test through this metabolics testing program that allows us to be able to say, hey, you actually have a methylation problem. We've got to do some things to actually turn that gene off, because if not, it doesn't matter how good of a lifestyle that you're living, you're just going to have a hard time detoxing from heavy metals and things like that. And then we go a little bit deeper, and we've got a female that has a ton of amalgam mercury fillings in their mouth. We've got thyroid issues, and then we've got a methylation problem. So you can't break down and detox those metals that are leaching into your body, which they do. And so therefore we've got this massive storm of hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, stress response, cortisone, estrogen. So we've got to know that. And the only way that you're going to know that is through testing. The best example I can give you is that you're trying to take care of your car. You got a high-performance engine, and everything is a computer now. You take your car into the mechanic, and they're checking the computer system, making sure that everything's working right. If the mechanic just took a look at your car from the outside and never went inside, never went under the hood and said, hey, well, this isn't wiring properly. This circuit, this breaker is not going well here. This isn't doing well. They would really never really be able to tell you what's wrong with your car nowadays, especially the cars that we have now. That's kind of similar to this program. Like, you can be doing every diet, you can have the best trainer, you can have all these different things, you can be doing chiropractic and all these things, and those are all good things that you should still be doing. But you have to have somebody go underneath the hood and actually look at what's going on in your body to determine what kind of supplementation, what kind of detox that you need. And so we do this through a urine analysis, a blood spot, and then actually a cheek or buccal swab. This allows us to be able to test for all of those different types of things. This particular program, we review all the results. We do customized recommendations, and we actually do 5 different consults over a 6-month period with different detoxification phases, supplementation phases. And at the end of that 6 months, we recommend a retest to make sure that all the glitches that were going on inside your body are actually being fixed. It's a process. It's kind of like going to a chiropractor and not having an x-ray. I don't really know what's trying to be accomplished in that instance, and then never having an x-ray at the end to make sure that what they were trying to fix was taken care of. So it's kind of like an x-ray of your gut. We find things like fatty acid metabolism, like your body's not actually breaking down fatty acids. I see this a lot in women. Women that, hey, every time I smell fat, I get fat. Well, I mean, it's not because fat's bad, because you have a fatty acid metabolism problem. Your body's just not breaking it down. I find this a lot with men that have testosterone issues. Like, you're not actually breaking down, you have an inflammatory fatty acid metabolism problem. You're inflamed. We have to decrease inflammation so that way your body can actually naturally produce testosterone. Neurotransmitter imbalances, oxidative damage, and antioxidant markers, detoxification indicators, and overall just bacterial issues. Like, you're super high in this particular bacteria. It's toxic. Even being able to test for parasitic infection, which is a huge problem right now. Some people say that 85% of individuals walking around have some type of a parasite. We would be able to know exactly, and even more testing through stool to tell us what's going on there. If you're listening to this and you're a patient, we're going to be doing some discounts through this. But if you're, not a patient and you're listening in, all you have to do is go to revivechiro.com. That's revive, CHIRO.com. And you can click on our metabolics portion, and you can schedule a free consult with Dr. Samantha. She'll hop on the phone with you, answer some questions. If you're struggling with gut, hormonal imbalances, weight, irregular cycles, low testosterone, increased body composition, then this is a great system for you, because we can actually begin to plug you in and actually manage this wherever you're at. And then we can even refer you to a practitioner local to your area that we trust that can manage some of the other stuff when it comes to chiropractic, when it comes to nutrition and so forth. So revivechiro.com, that's revivechiro.com to make that new patient appointment. The big thing I want to talk about here is the body is connected. Before I kind of talk about xenoestrogens and chiropractic and things like that, a stressor is caught by your brain, right? Your brain picks up a stress. Your brain basically breaks it down. It does a couple things. It goes to a cognitive deficit. It can create things like visceral pain. It can create things like abnormal behaviors. Those things are connected to the gut via the gut-brain axis. We talked about gut dysbiosis and how that can affect the neuroendocrine system, aka your hormones. An inability to be able to fix those gut bacteria actually create endocrine messages, neuronal messages, immune messages back to the brain, and basically your body is in adaptation mode. So we're talking about somebody who's sick all the time, somebody who can't pay attention in class, somebody who has abnormal hormones. I want you to understand that the brain is a player in all that. And so as we begin to kind of phase into chiropractic here, I want you to understand why it's so important that chiropractic and the nervous system is clear, so that way the body, the gut, and everything can communicate in an effective manner. If all you do is heal the gut, but your signal from your brain is being affected via subluxation, and that neuronal message doesn't get there properly, you're only fixing one part of the problem. If you're only being adjusted, but you've got gut dysbiosis, your diet is full of fast food and stuff, like there's only so much you can expect your body to do besides adapting appropriately, which is what it naturally wants to do. I look at this process kind of like a conductor of an orchestra. You've got a conductor, and it's kind of like sending signals to the orchestra, telling this part of the orchestra to do this and that. That's the brain, and that's what it's doing to the rest of the body. If somebody over here isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's going to mess everything up. Medicine looks at this system and says, well, hey, let's just cut a foot of your colon out. Hey, how about we just cauterize this? I just talked to a mom the other day that adenoids were cut out, and they basically cut a piece of the sinuses out because he was constantly getting stuffy with all kinds of snot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're cutting parts of people's bones and their noses out, and kids that aren't even in high school yet because they've got chronic runny noses. Has anybody ever talked to this individual about gut microbiome or inflammation or dairy or diet? And that question was never asked. The conductor is your brain. You just can't start ripping stuff out. You've got to find the root cause, fix it, so the body can go back into harmony. I want to talk a little bit about xenoestrogens, and what do I mean by that? When I talk about this kind of stuff, I kind of get the grumpy uncle response, like, well, you know what? Everything's toxic. The heck with it. Like, let's just live life, and I'll get a brand new body when I get to heaven. Hey, there's some truth to that. Everything is toxic. I find everything out there. It's crazy to be healthy in the world we're living in today. You can't put yourself in a bubble. So some things that I want to bring to your attention, though, that we just kind of have to look at and we have to pay attention to, especially when it comes to endocrine or estrogen disruptors in females, especially, but also when it comes to men. Number one, the lining of tin cans and things like that, like eating things out of a tin can. Like a lot of those things leach into the food, and then we're heating them up in a microwave that's in a plastic, BPA. Like these are xenoestrogen. These are estrogen disruptors that are creating amounts of toxicity. Fragrances. I said this before. Women are walking around with about 475 different chemicals on their body on a daily basis, which is the reason why it is that there's so much more estrogen-dominant cancers in females, because most men don't wear makeup, right? And, we just don't have that type of chemicals in our body. Detergents, like what are you washing your clothes with? Like there's all kinds of different things that, laundry sheets. Like I was reading something that laundry sheets are some of the most toxic things that you could ever put on your clothes. And then when you put those clothes on and you sweat and your pores open up, those xenoestrogens leach into your skin. They go directly into a stress response, affecting your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, therefore creating an imbalance in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Shampoos, soaps, pesticides, herbicides. I mean, let me just, with soaps and shampoos, like these are things that you're using every single day, sometimes twice a day. So it's not like we're using them once a month, like we're using them every day. So these are the things that you have to take a step back and say, I've got to choose soaps and sprays and things on myself and my kids that don't have parabens, that don't have endocrine disruptors in them. You can order these things online. Like you can, go to Fresh Time, you can go to Whole Foods, like you can go to Thrive Market, like, do some research, Google paraben-free healthy body wash, healthy soap, things like toothpaste. Like toothpaste has propylene glycol in it, which is an endocrine disruptor and a massive toxicity agent. So watching what your kids are brushing their teeth with, all of these things play a huge part in that. Bleached feminine products, right? So, when it comes to women, when it comes to tampons, when it comes to what you're wiping yourself with, like these are all things that we just don't think about that are massive issues. Like, I think a lot of people in this space are looked at as weird because it's like, well, that's got bleach in it. Like, I'm not going to put that in my bathroom. Well, why is that? Because I'm wiping myself with it on a regular basis. If you're a female and you're going through a menstruation period and your tampon is got chlorine in it, it's leaching into your body and it's creating those estrogen disruptor xenoestrogens. So these are things that we need to think about. The biggest resource that I can give you is go to ewg.org, right? So ewg.org. E is an elephant, W is in Waldo, G is in G is in George.org, ewg.org, the environmentalworkinggroup.org. And basically, you can plug in what you're using, and it'll actually give you the toxicity limits and what it's got in it. And it'll also give you the resources of like what are the cleaner options that you have available. That is the best resource that you could have for that. Low T or just bad choices. The biggest thing that we see here with low T is not as much xenoestrogens, and we're not using feminine products and whatever, but it is the shampoo, gentlemen. It is the deodorant. Kick the Old Spice, kick some of the other toxic shampoos. I actually love Dr. Squatch. It's one of my favorite shampoos and deodorants right now. Dr. Squatch. It's a hilarious company. They would do a great job with ads. It's kind of like this Sasquatch guy that puts healthy stuff on his body. My kids love it. My boys love it. They smell like a bourbon barrel cask, or they've got all kinds of really cool stuff, but there's no parabens, there's no toxics in it, and you smell like a man. And so stay away from those kind of like toxic ingredients kind of stuff. But the big thing for low T is for guys, it's just bad choices, to be honest with you. I mean, men were never meant to be, big beer guts and, man boobs and, just low sex drive and losing our hair. Like we were never supposed to be like that. When you look, when you look at a good example, I was telling my kids about the Maasai tribe in Africa. We were on our way to a football game, and my son was complaining about something. And I said, listen, son, like you're 8 years old. In about 5 more years in the Maasai tribe, you would actually be kicked out of the tribe, and you would be asked to go make a spear on your own that has to be sharp and has to be able to kill a male adult lion. And until you kill a male adult lion, you're not allowed back into the tribe. And he looked at me and he goes, wow, like that's pretty rough. What happens whenever you don't kill a lion? And I said, well, you're not allowed to be a part. You're not allowed to be a man. And he goes, wow, I better start to learn how to cook eggs then. And I was like, yeah, like, so I think for men, we have kind of lowered our expectations, our drive, our determination, our masculinity is just naturally being ripped away from us in general. But I think we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot from excess alcohol, way too high blood sugar, type 2 diabetes. We're overweight. We're undernourished. We have poor sleep. We're just taking a medication because it's convenient. And this is just what I see, unfortunately, is that, hey, women coming into our clinics with their kids, dads at home, drinking, beer, eating pizza, taking the medication. I don't believe in that natural stuff. The reality is that we've got to be better stewards over our body. And yes, the natural aging process will decrease testosterone 1% to 2%. But if you're 40 years old and you've got the testosterone of a 12-year-old girl, like there's a problem there. Now there are some, Prader-Willi and different types of chromosomal issues, and men that are developed with like cryptorchids and testicles not dropping. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about men that used to have normal testosterone, muscle, drive, determination, getting up in the morning, and all of a sudden, boom, I just kind of let myself go. And I find this happens like in the 30s, because in the 30s for me, this is when just everything went chaotic. Business is crazy. We start having kids. We're not sleeping as much. We skip the workout. We swing by, McDonald's. We're just kind of, and then we create really bad habits. And that is when in our 40s is when our testosterone is really low, and there's a low T clinic on every single corner now that's like, hey, if you have low T and you have this, come in, let me inject you, and all things will get better. I'm just here to tell you that you're probably going to get more muscle mass. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel great, and that stuff is addicting. It's very, very addicting because it really takes little work, and I can inject myself with something. But there are some toxic effects to, not fixing the root cause of a problem and then injecting yourself with something artificially that your body already has the ability to naturally produce. A couple things that we have available for you guys as far as like fitness. Warrior3project.com. My wife and I have been working on this for quite some time. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started a company called Warrior 3 Project for men, and it's all about building a stronger man, physically, spiritually, relationally, emotionally. One of my best friends took his life, and ever since that day, I've just been on a mission to help men become stronger. And one of the ways that I find men just lose drive, lose determination is because of testosterone. And we try to help them through fitness and nutrition and prayer and just brotherhood. And it's just a super awesome company. So if you go to warrior3project.com, you can actually check that out. But when it comes to fitness, we actually have put together something for you that just makes it very convenient. Now, notice I didn't say easy, because I think anything easy is a gimmick. It's convenient. It's right there for you. Every day at 4 a.m., it shows up in your inbox. You've got your workout. You've got your daily devotional. You've got your nutrition tip. You've got a challenge. You've got like an online database through an app that we can pray. We can communicate to one another. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Every Tuesday from 1 to 2 Eastern Standard Time, I actually lead a live call with men where we just kind of go through, hey, how can we help each other? I'm struggling with this. Like, what kind of nutrition stuff can I do? So if you go to warrior3project.com, you can check us out. We actually have created a Warrior Women, which is super cool. My wife and I have partnered together, and she goes, man, I'm just sick and tired of you having all the fun. And so I actually find that women are coming to me saying, hey, my husband really needs to be a part of this. My wife is like, hey, well, let's just do it together. So here's the deal. If you go to warrior3project.com, you can just kind of get an overall glimpse as to what we're trying to get accomplished. But if you go to warrior40challenge.com, so go to warrior40challenge.com, you can actually get access to our 40-day, our Warrior Wellness program, and our Warrior Men's and our Warrior Women's program. So here's what we're going to do. If you go there and you sign up, you get 40 days for free. We're going to give it to you for free for 40 days for you to try. It's got all your exercise, it's got all your nutrition, it's got your detoxification, it's got just prayer, daily devotional. It's different for men and women because we're just different, right? So we're just different individuals, so it's geared differently. The men can't see the women can't see the men. My wife leads the women's side, I lead the men's side. But we're going to give it to you for 40 days. If you love it, after 40 days, it's just $25 a month, and or $250 for the year. If you hate it after 40 days, then go ahead and cancel it and go on doing what you're doing. But we want to give you access to that. So go to warrior40challenge.com. If you're a woman, go ahead and take the Warrior Women's. If you're a man, go ahead and do the men's, and we'd love to connect with you that way. When it comes to fitness, it can be pretty tricky. When it comes to hormones, cortisol. Let me talk about women for a little bit. If you're a woman who's got some hormonal imbalances, fitness is super important. But if you're maxed out and you're stressed to the max, just so you know, it might not be good for you to be waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to the gym, and stressing your body out for an hour doing high-intensity interval trainings in 100-degree heat. I know there's a lot of that stuff out there, and I'm not saying it's bad. A lot of women do really well with it, but some women don't because they're already in fight or flight. Their cortisol levels are all over the place, and so it actually might redline you, and it might take you over the edge. So You just got to be pretty specific of where you're at. And so it might just be a 30-minute walk. It might be a light jog. It might be actually toning it down and on the intensity and just doing some strength training. I talk to people a lot, and they're like, hey, I walk every day. And I'm like, hey, that's awesome, but you're not going to build muscle by walking. Like, you're not going to radically change physiology by walking. Walking is good, and I'm glad you're doing it, but you need to do some type of a strength training regimen to increase bone mineral density and to balance hormones. So if you're a female out there, watch how hard you go, because you might be redlining it. And don't be afraid to add some weights in there. Adding weights is not going to make you fat. It's not going to bulk you up. It's going to increase lean muscle tissue. It's going to balance your hormones. Very good for you. Most women are just like, hey, I go for a walk every day, or I go for a jog. That might be the reason why it is that your cortisol levels are out of balance. For men, we just got to do something, right? We got to do something. A couple little hacks here. As I love intermittent fasting for men. So you're fasting. Most of us who are listening to this right now, we're not world-class athletes, so we don't need to worry about having 30 grams of carbohydrates before I go to the gym. Going into your workout fasted, doing a 20 to 30 minute high intensity, weight training, body weight, functional movement, just absolutely skyrockets testosterone. Very, very researched with men. Doing it, consistently throughout the week. I love a 3 days on, 1 day off kind of a program. And that 1 day off, maybe you're going for a walk, maybe you're doing some stretching, maybe you're going for a run with your kids, whatever. We just have to be active. We need to be consistent while doing it. So women, make sure you pump the brake. High intensity may not be the greatest for you. Maybe it is. It just depends on the individual. And then for men, we got to get moving. Being on a treadmill for 45 minutes on an incline, or even, I will tell you, the 100-pound dumbbells that you're trying to, bench press on your back, but you got the big beer gut, it might be time for you to kind of go a little bit lighter weight, increase the intensity, get your heart rate up, get your body moving and breathing and sweating to spike that metabolism and balance that HPA axis. When it comes to the nervous system, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about here. Let me ask you the question: what system controls all endocrine function? The answer, if you got it right, would be the nervous system. Your nervous system is basically where your hypothalamus sits. It is under control. It controls everything from the brain down. Your brain sends a signal from the spinal cord down the brain, or down the spinal cord, out the nerves to every cell, tissue, and organ, your thyroid, your gut. Everything is under control of the nervous system, and all the organs actually send that message back up to the brain. The brain tells it what to do, from the HPA axis to gut, to thyroid, to whatever. If you have a hormone issue, you also have a neurology issue. And so this is where chiropractic is actually extremely powerful and heavily researched. So the nervous system, having a healthy nervous system is all about balance. Like, you've got a sympathetic nervous system and you have what we call a parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is that kind of fight or flight, which is where most people lie when it comes to like estrogen, progesterone imbalance, low T. Their body is just maxed out. Your body has been in a stress response for way too long, and your body's just like, listen, I'm done with you. I can't do it anymore. A good analogy is like, hey, a tiger were to get loose in the car while you're listening to this podcast. What's going to happen to your blood pressure? It's going to go up. Inflammation is going to go up. All the blood's going to pull away from your heart, go to your extremities. Your sex drive is going to go down. Your digestion is going to go down because you're not thinking about finding a mate while a tiger is trying to run after you. That's like fight or flight. And so parasympathetic is kind of like that rest and digest. That's where like low blood pressure, like you're craving stimulation, you're just bored. And so a healthy nervous system is about the balancing of those two things. This was an article that was done, the effects of spinal chiropractic adjustments and myofascial techniques on heart rate variability. What they found was that having a chiropractic adjustment has an influence on the autonomic nervous system, depending upon the site or the specificity of where that adjustment was. This is where chiropractic and the specificity of chiropractic and what we do as chiropractors is very important. Cracking a back and picking your buddy up and cracking their back, like that's not chiropractic. That's a manipulation. But it's very, very specific. There's certain parts of your spine that actually have a heavier influence on your sympathetic nervous system, and there are certain parts of your spine that are innervated and have a heavier impact on the parasympathetic nervous system. So they found that a greater parasympathetic response was found when stimulation was performed in the cervical and the lumbar region. So when individuals, when their necks were adjusted, when their heads were forward and their heads were brought back and their low backs were adjusted, they actually were able to decrease that sympathetic response and put people back into a parasympathetic response, and they were actually be able to heal and adapt to those inevitable stressors, which is important because if you can't do that and your body is in fight or flight and you're doing all these gut protocols, you're taking all these supplements, you're praying all the time, but your body is your spine is subluxated, your nervous system is irritated, specifically in your neck and your low back because of sitting all day and your head 6 feet in front of your body. A chiropractic adjustment done specifically in the right area, and then spinal rehabilitation to keep that spine in a good spot has a huge impact on stimulating that parasympathetic response and therefore creating balance in the nervous system. One of the greatest ways that I can see an individual that's in fight or flight is just forward head posture. So when you see that individual where their head is in front of their shoulders, that is an individual that's in fight or flight. Could be from trauma, could be from chemical toxicity, could be from emotional toxicity. For every 1 inch forward that your head is in front of your shoulders, that's about 10 extra pounds of weight that's placed on your head. The longer that we keep your head there, the more pressure it's going to place on your brainstem. The more pressure on your brainstem, the more pressure that's going to have on your gut and how your body regulates itself. And so that's why in our office we do x-rays, we do specific diagnostic procedures to figure out exactly where the spine's at. And then we put you on a corrective chiropractic program to adjust the spine, rehabilitate the spine in office and at home to make sure that your spine is holding that position. Because like I said before, stress is never going to go away, whether it be physical stress from sitting in a computer, looking at your cell phone every single day. I mean, even me recording this podcast right now or driving home from my podcast, you can't get away from sitting. Chemically, from food, from water, from environmental toxins. Our buckets are constantly being bombarded with chemicals. And then thoughts, emotional stress, kids going back to school, homework, ball practice back and forth. When am I going to have time for this? And financial things, all these different things. These are things that we have to respond appropriately. And that one of the best ways to respond appropriately is to be proactive. And being proactive with regular chiropractic care to modulate and to allow the nervous system to better adapt to stressors, making sure that we're having a good, clean, healthy diet with good, healthy fats, good quality meats, and so forth, like we talked about, making sure that we're exercising appropriately on a regular basis to stimulate testosterone, to lower cortisol levels, to be able to balance that sympathetic and parasympathetic response. And I think the last thing here is just being able to understand that your body was not born sick and weak. Like your hormones, if you're in hormone dysfunction, if you're having low T issues, if you're having estrogen dominance, like there is a root cause to that. And in our office, that's what our whole entire goal is we're a cause-driven office, whether it be coming from your spine, coming from your gut, coming from your emotional and spiritual health, coming from everything. Our system we do here at Revive is geared towards cleaning up that bucket, pulling that stuff out of the bucket so your body can heal and it can adapt. So that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, season 2, episode 2 of Holy Hormones. If you're out there and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you've got a hormonal issue, you've got a spinal issue, you're local here to the Columbus area, go to revivechiro.com. That's revivechiro.com to make a new patient appointment online. If you're struggling with metabolic issues, if you really want to work on getting tested, go to revivechiro.com, click on our metabolics portion. You can schedule a free 15-minute phone consultation with my wife, Dr. Samantha, and she'll walk you through the testing. If you're a dude out there and you're really looking for a community of men that's going to help you with your testosterone, with your life in general, Go to warrior40challenge.com. Take the 40-day challenge for free. After 40 days, just $25. If you're a female and you also want a good kick in the butt, you want a strong group of ladies that can help lead you, walk alongside you spiritually, physically, and relationally, go to warrior40challenge.com. Take the 40-day Warrior Women's Challenge that my wife is doing. We're just super excited. Until next time, here at Revive, we pray that you have a healthy, happy, blessed day. Bye-bye.